Welcome, everyone. Hi, Kenneth Lang here with Terrence, Terry, Seamon, and we thought we would talk today. We're both career coaches in our own rights, and I think one of the things that we find probably most challenging with those in transition, even those who are looking to build relationships, is even the words networking, which is really just about conversations. I think we overthink this a lot. It's about you and I talking, Terry. It's about other people talking, and it's about building relationships for sure.
Yes, definitely. And it's great to be here with you today, Ken. Yeah, for years now, I've been scratching my head, and so have many other career coaches that I know, on the issue of why are people so skittish when it comes to networking? Why is it so tough for some people to do it? What are they afraid of? And I think there's probably misconceptions. Probably a lot of misconceptions are fueling that reluctance. And what started to dawn on me in just the last couple of years is getting more and more sharply focused for me is just as you said. What is networking? Networking is a relationship. Look at you and me. We've known each other for a couple of years now, and we've had phone chats, email exchanges. I've come to many of these live events, and here we are talking. Isn't this wonderful? And
Yeah.
and this is what I want my clients to do. And I think there's a might be a better way to get there. And you teed it up nicely. And that is to talk with people about who do you want to have a conversation with?
I think, it's funny because Hannah Morgan actually made a comment on one of my posts. No one picks up the phone anymore, and it's
Yeah,
really true.
yeah,
We're all inclined to be on LinkedIn or on these chats. Picking up the phone is
yes,
and it's a lost art, I think, to some extent about how people actually use the phone.
yeah. I often say to my clients, pick up the phone and give so and so a call. In many cases, I'm trying to, give them baby steps. So I'll say, how about a former boss that you remember fondly, a former coworker, somebody you got along with great, maybe a former supplier or a former customer, somebody you know really well, you had a good relationship with, you maybe have been in touch for a while. Why don't you pick up the phone and just first reconnect with that person? Forget about the fact that you're looking for a job. Just reconnect. And I'm hoping that those words are getting through and actually reaching them and are not as scary as networking.
Connecting, follow up. I mean,
Have a conversation, talk to
right.
people.
Just and listen
Yeah.
and pay attention. I think one of the things which I realized about myself is I actually listened to my cell phone message, and
Yeah.
it was horrible. And people, and I know it's not a big thing, but you realize you gotta everything is all about you.
Yep.
Your message, your profile, how you come across.
Hmm.
And I think job seekers and those that you train also, they can be their own worst enemies about a lot
Indeed.
of stuff.
Yes, yes, definitely. I've had many clients, wonderful people, very, salt of the earth, but they just get stuck on the computer. They stare at the computer all day long, whether it's LinkedIn or something else, and they never pick up the phone, as far as I know. Never attend a job search support group, as far as I know, and are not reaching out to people, as far as I know. And obviously, I'm not there in their home watching over them, but the impression I get in the coaching sessions that we have is that they're not tapping into the power in the relationships that they have. Relationships are key. Ken, when I think about my career, and I'd be
Mhm.
curious to hear about yours as well, and I
Sure.
think back to the jobs I've had over the last 30 plus years, each one of them, there was a relationship aspect to it. One of my favorite stories to tell, this is going back into the early 1980s. I know I'm dating myself, but hey,
No, you're
whatever.
not.
Uh, uh, I was out of work, and my wife went to choir practice one night. And before the practice started, she said to the choir, my husband's looking for a job. He's a training guy. and one of the tenors put his hand up and said, "Joan, I think my company's looking to hire a training manager right now. Let me check tomorrow and I'll get back to you." And anyway, the next day he checked the job board, got back to her. They were in fact looking to hire a training manager. Guess who got hired? That was
Well,
one of my earlier jobs in the corporate world, and it was due to a tenor in the church choir. Swear to God, true story.
well, what before I share a little bit of my story, if anyone wants to chime in and let everyone know that to hear, I'd appreciate it. I'm going to tell you a very funny story, and this is what happened to me.
Okay.
Probably 10 or 11, 12 years ago now, I started talking to people about
Mm-hmm.
what I did. And I realized after a while, I was talking to people about things that they didn't understand. I have an IT background, and the words that came to mind were words I would use, with people in my industry. But most people didn't know what I really did. And so,
Mm-hmm.
and my family said, "What do you do?" So I did two things. I broke it down to something very simple that they would understand. And then I actually sat down with them and showed them what I did. And it had a whole different meaning for that
Uh-huh.
because, I'm a problem solver and I'm a business analyst and all these things. But the thing about it is this: is how does that translate to someone who is not in your field that can then put you in front of someone? And
Mm-hmm.
Alex actually put down here, and I'll share this with everyone else here. I've read that communication is more important than food. Solitary confinement. I mean, communication is everything.
Yes.
Um, and
Yes.
dumbing it down, whether it's an elevator pitch or what you do, is sometimes all that's needed because
Mm-hmm.
we're all so used to having to talk in 30 or 45 seconds about what we do because before the next person goes, it doesn't always work that way.
Yeah. Yeah. I think the most important skill in life is the ability to communicate. And that definitely goes for anyone in a job search or a career transition. You've got to be able to communicate. And communicating is what Ken and I are doing right now. We're communicating with each other,
Right.
saying things, sharing things, but it's also the listening part, which you have often spoken about, Ken, of listening to that other person. And then back to your story about communicating what you did to your family, really doing your best to channel what you're saying to the audience you're talking to. And if you can somehow channel or tailor that message to your audience, you increase the possibility of actually getting through to them.
It's
So
amazing. No, I'm sorry. It's amazing when you
yeah,
talk to people and you break it down.
yeah.
I talk a lot about this. It's not just what you write on your LinkedIn profile about your experience, but what is it about that you can do
Hmm.
to solve someone else's problem? I think a lot of us are inclined to talk about what we've done as opposed to what we can do for someone. It
Yes,
makes a big
yes.
difference.
Yes, and what you're touching on there is really a challenge for anybody in a job search or a career change, and that is to first start with the self, the individual himself or herself, and who am I? What am I good at? How do I help other people? How does what I do benefit others, change others, maybe even transform others? Because many of us, whether project managers, salespeople, teachers, trainers, coaches, what we do really does, in many cases, change and transform others and businesses, customers,
Mhm.
and I encourage my clients to think about that. How do you, through what you do and what you're really good at, how do you change and benefit the lives of others?
And this is so true. It's not just communicating, it's how much and to whom. When you talk to
Correct.
people, you want to make sure you share the right information with them.
That's right. That's right.
That's so important. I know that
Yeah.
one of the things we talk about a lot is we want to share, and I'll ask someone all the time when they connect with me, how can I help you specifically?
That's a great question. That is a great question. How can I help you? And in fact, one of my little motivational quotes I share sometimes with folks is start every day with that question: who can I help today?
And helping takes on all different meanings. I
Indeed. Yeah.
think, you know, it's sometimes just being a sympathetic ear to
Yeah.
someone else.
Yeah.
I'm a big proponent of having a bunch of people. I call them a posse, but it's just an accountability team, a bunch of people that will all get together and chat, but also be accountable to each other. No pity parties allowed.
I love your concept of the posse, Ken, and I've quoted it many, many times. Uh, Paul Sakala wrote his book a year or two ago about work search buddies, and I'll be talking with him soon in one of my conversations with career coaches about that. And I've been an advocate for small groups in the job search and in career transitions for decades, and it really is the way to go. I say to folks, do not go it alone in a job search or a career change. Instead, you know, get together with one person, form a team of two, a team of two. That's all I ask. Form a team of two. It can be your spouse, your significant other, a friend, a family member, a former coworker, a former boss. And then even better, expand it out just a little bit. A group of three, a group of four that meets on a regular basis. When I look back on my career transitions, of which I've had many in my career, one particular time stands out where a group of about five of us would meet weekly at one restaurant or another. This is back in the 1990s.
Mm-hmm.
And so we'd meet maybe for breakfast, maybe
Mm-hmm.
for lunch. And what we did was we just sit around a table in a restaurant and we would talk about how our searches were going. And it was fantastic because it was this great little support group of I was in the human resources field, so we were all human resources people. There was a benefits guy, a compensation person, there was a human resources generalist, there was the training guy, I was the training guy, and we just sat there and we were there to help support one another, and it's a great thing.
One question that came up from one of my groups, and I'd be curious to get your take on it. When someone lands a job, first of all, besides the obvious, everyone is congratulating them and all that. Um, how do you feel about people that are in transition reaching out to someone who's just landed a job about getting their expertise or following up with them? Or what would you expect someone who just landed a job? How would you expect them to respond to someone? Because they're going to have a lot of other things going on. The last thing they're really looking into is getting back into people who are in transition, but the people in transition are like, well, you got a job, help me out. So I'm wondering how you manage something like that.
Yeah. No, it's very true, Ken, that when you start a new job, it's like you've just gotten into a roller coaster that just took off. And you are zooming, you're learning, you're meeting new people, you've got stuff flying at you thick and fast, and you can be overwhelmed very quickly. And for your phone to ring from another career transitioner to call to say, hey, what can you help me? It might be hard to respond to. But having said all of that, I recommend to my clients that when they land, take some time before the new job swallows them whole to reflect on their job search or on their career change and jot down what were the lessons that they learned. Jot them down. And if it goes nowhere further than that, it's worth it because they'll look back at those notes someday. Maybe the next time they're in a career transition, they'll look back and they'll say, "Oh yeah, I got to make sure I reach out to people. I got to make sure I do this. Got to make sure I do that." But even better than writing it down, share it. Share it with the transitioners that supported you during your search. If you have a coach like say me, share it with that coach because that coach then, if they've got your permission, may actually be able to share that with a whole bunch of others. And the more we can share those lessons learned with each other, I think the more we can help each other. Job search is tough. Career change is tough.
Mhm.
Most of us have no idea what we're doing, how to do it, which end is up. And so if people who've landed can just take a few moments and put it on paper and then share it with a few others, well, it's amazing how big a help that can be to other people.
I definitely agree. I'm wondering if anyone has any questions they'd like to ask us. I know that I have my New Jersey contingent here. I'd be curious to know who else is there. One of the reasons I brought that up is I think it's a very delicate balance. And I think the idea of having those who've just landed be in touch with someone like yourself is so relevant because if you have a list of people that everyone's email addresses and all their information, they're going to be bombarded. And I think at the same time, they're not going to, may not have the frame of reference, and they may mean well. And then there's a frustration on the job seeker side. How come this person's not getting back to me? And that's, I actually said, they said, they don't get back to you, move on. Don't worry about it.
Yep.
It's nothing personal.
Yep.
It's just life and people are busy.
That's right. It happens when you start that new job. Pow! All of a sudden, you're just focused on that, and the things that you were doing a few days before, informational interviews, job interviews, going to networking groups, all of that recedes into the past real fast.
I think also, which I find a lot, is most people really don't know what they want help with.
Yeah.
They want someone to get them a job, but that's not the goal by itself.
That's right. That's right. Getting the job is a journey, I like to say, and there may be many steps in that journey. And I'm not an engineer by training, but I think I am an engineer by brain wiring, because I think of these things as a step-by-step process, and that you can always loop back and circle back and repeat things. No problem with that, because we need to at times. But it's important to think about what are the first things first, what comes after that, and then what do you do after that. And if you follow a process, whether it's my process or somebody else's process or your own process, you're going to be much better off, because you're going to be, instead of floundering and flailing, which a lot of people do, floundering and flailing is sort of the alternative. You're going to be following a step-by-step process towards your goal. I strongly encourage that.
So Joey asked the question, how would you suggest a frustrated job seeker face the job market today?
Hi, Joey. I'm a big fan of Joey.
Yes.
I think the number one thing I would say about facing the job market today: don't face it alone. Come here to the regularly scheduled Kenneth Lang LinkedIn Live sessions. Every week, go to one or more job search support groups. Surround yourself with a cloud of supporters. You'll be learning. You'll be connecting with people. You'll be building relationships, which is where Ken and I started this conversation today. It's all about relationship. Connect with people for conversations about what you're trying to do and what's most important to you, as well as what they are trying to do and what's most important to them. Make it a win-win. Make it a two-way conversation.
Well, what I'm doing now in February for the second time is I'm having a couple of people in transition on a call like this, and we're going to talk.
Great.
And we're going to and we're just going to talk about things, and we're going to brainstorm. And I said to the people there, it's really a combination of practicing interviewing skills, practicing exposure, feeling comfortable with it, and you just never know.
Yeah, you're going to do that here on LinkedIn Live.
Do that. I'm doing that. I did it once before. I'm doing it in February again.
Excellent. I'll be there,
and then I'll be doing it again after that. But the funny thing is, I put that out several times, and no one wanted to do it.
Well, it's that could be a little scary, I would think, for the job seekers.
Right, but it's getting out of your comfort zone. I mean, this is totally getting out of my comfort zone to do this.
Yes. I'm putting my toe in the water too.
So I think for me, what I find very challenging now, honestly, is balancing work life. I mean, there's nothing wrong with taking time off to do things. You don't have to be doing this 9 through 5, and we're getting back to having a lot of meetings, and you have to allow some me time. You have to allow some time to be busy, even if you're not busy in terms of scheduling stuff.
Yeah, I agree. For many years in the HR field, we talked about work-life balance, and it was never something we could ever really resolve. And I think what I've learned over the course of time is that we're not going to be able to resolve it. Work-life balance is elusive. It's kind of a unicorn. Much better, I think, kind of like what you were saying, Ken, and that is to look at each day as your life. Like what what's most important to you in your life today. We're going to have this LinkedIn Live today at 1 o'clock. Hopefully it'll be very rich, and people will enjoy it and get a few takeaways. How about dinner tonight? You having dinner with the family? I'm making dinner for my wife and me. She's got a rehearsal tonight, so I'm gonna put together a nice little dinner for her before she has to go to rehearsal. So live your life, live your life each day, making sure that you've got time for others and time for yourself and time for the people around you who matter the most.
Definitely. I think one of the things that we talk a lot about is having that time for yourself, but also being willing to have certain boundaries as to what you do. One of the things that I go back and forth about this, but we're all on so many different calls and things. You want to show grace and empathy to people if they miss a call or don't attend or something. It's not like a meeting at work where after 10 minutes it's like, well, you're not there, I'm not going to be there.
Yeah.
Sort of thing.
Yeah. Everybody's busy. Plus, you've got the pandemic going on, which is messing with our heads, as Paul Sakala said the other day in a talk he gave that I listened to on the playback. I think he put that very well. He said it's messing with our heads, and it really is. And stress is off the charts, folks. As if you didn't know that already, it's off the charts. And so we have to be good to ourselves. We have to be kind to others, and I think we've got to give each other some slack. Give each other some slack. Oh, what's Alex saying here?
Alex, and this is a thing. Again, requiring a camera to be on for a Zoom, no sidebar chat, participate. Don't be a taker. I would counter that to say that for the most part, I agree. There are some meetings that again, I'm not in pajamas necessarily, but I don't know that I necessarily want people to see me.
Yeah.
But again, I love the idea of no sidebar chat. I think the main thing is just to be a participant. You want to participate.
Yeah, I agree with that. What Alex has written, for the most part, I agree with. And I agree with your addition. Be a participant, be active. Put something in, you'll get something out. With regard to keeping the camera on, I had somebody say to me recently, and it made me laugh. She said, "Terry, I'm not camera ready today." And I said, "No problem, no problem."
So then Helene actually put, the last place she was employed, we need to fill positions. There was no hiring through networking. If I had to depend on my communication and networking skills, I would never have a job.
How did they hire people, Helene?
So if you want to follow up with that, definitely put that in. There's different layers of hiring. I mean, companies put jobs online on job boards in many cases because legally they need to, and there's a lot of best practices with that. But most of the jobs that are out there now that I find, they're people that know people at different companies because they're just filled right away, which brings up a whole different discussion. And I said this today also, do not watch the news for everything. The Great Recession, don't talk about there's jobs out there and all that. It doesn't do you any good to watch the news when a lot of the information is misinformation, or in my opinion, it's misinformation because there's no one has the time to really go through it in detail.
The good news, in my opinion, about what's happening right now with the Great Resignation is that hiring is hot right now. Hiring is hot. If you are in the job market, be as proactive as you can be. And that word proactive means a lot of things. In fact, I published some articles on LinkedIn about being a proactive job hunter. Now's the time to be out there, to be visible, to be connecting with others, to be attending professional events in your field, so that you're meeting decision makers.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot that goes into that. But now is the time. If you are in a job search, be out there and be visible and be learning. Always be improving yourself and adding skills.
So Michelle, who is one of my networking compadres, has gotten her jobs through networking. There are a lot of great groups. And one of the things I used to preach is not every group is going to be for every person. You can go to a group a couple of times
Yeah.
and just decide not to go.
Yeah.
Definitely have to give a shout out to Hannah Morgan, who's on the call.
Hannah, hey.
Hannah, hey. And it's true. You can get a civil service job through networking as well.
Yeah.
I know in New Jersey, they're looking for people now.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
for all different positions. Sometimes you have to think outside the box and outside your comfort zone.
Yes.
You know, the skills that you have in many cases are transferable.
That's correct.
And
That's
a lot
right.
of the people that I know that have landed realized at some point that they couldn't keep applying for the same jobs that were there, not because they weren't qualified, but because it was just not working. So they did a little bit of a pivot, didn't you know? And I think that's so important to understand
Yeah.
that.
I think it was the author of What Color's Your Parachute, Richard Nelson Bowles, who once said, the more skills you have, the more doors you can open. And so, to Ken's point, inventory all of your skills, your technical skills, your functional skills, your soft skills, and then any of those that you would consider to be transferable skills. Those are the skills that will take you to your next position. I'm working with an individual right now. He's a warehouse manager, highly experienced individual, but he's actually burned out on that work and doesn't want to do it anymore. He wants to change careers. So he and I are currently inventorying all of his skills. And he's got a load of great skills that I feel very strongly are going to take him right into the next career that he's looking at.
I think also we all talk about the little things that the job seekers need to do
Yep.
and Bob McIntosh, if you have a chance on LinkedIn, he wrote a really great column about certain things that job seekers of our age especially don't realize they're doing. Everything from resume typeface to having an address on your resume back in the days when you mailed them.
Right. Right.
To maybe putting the word cell next to your phone because the assumption is that we are staying in touch by cell phone. Having a relevant email address, Yahoo and AOL just don't work. But it's little things like that make and it's about how you're perceived.
Right.
And again, not putting 20 years of jobs on your resume, all of that.
Yep. Those are all really good tips. I can't tell you how many times I've said to clients, let's take that little word "sell" off there. As an example, let's take that off. It's not necessary.
The other thing is, and the best place to start is listing on a piece of paper the pros and cons for any job you want to have. What's most important to you? And then you can work with that a lot better instead of just throwing it out there, because you'll be surprised as you do that in a personal inventory, the difference it'll make.
Yes. The place to start with a job search or a career change is with the person you see in the mirror. Start right there. Start with that person and don't skimp over it. Take your time. Go deep. Look at that person in depth, because that person today is not the same as the person from 15, 20, 25 years ago. You have learned, you have grown, you have done all kinds of things, you've accomplished all kinds of things. Start by taking a full assessment of that person in the mirror.
And to go along with that too, I've said to people many times on these calls, if you're looking for a job, where does it say it on your profile? I'm not suggesting open to work. I'm not suggesting so much looking for new opportunities in a title, but the term is searchable. If you put down that you're looking for work, if you're interested in remote work, these are searchable terms by recruiters. And if you don't put it on there, how are you really making it a best practice and really setting yourself apart?
Yeah, it's a great example of using LinkedIn effectively.
So a couple of things from Hannah. She has an accountability group. 3 people got interviews using the 2-step process, applying and then finding an insider to talk to. A very important thing. You apply for a job and find an insider. You can go to a company page on LinkedIn to find them. You build if you don't have if you have a second connection, I think that's very underutilized. Let's say I'm connected with someone at a company, and you know me. Ask me if I can maybe set up an introduction. You may have to refresh my memory a little bit about how we connected, but if I know what you want to do, it's certainly helpful. I mean, I'm not always a big proponent of reaching out right away, connecting on LinkedIn with someone all the way up the food chain, but everything, every situation is different.
Yeah, yeah. I love that two-step process, Hannah, and I've seen it work with some of my clients as well.
So also knowing that the job requesting 3 to 5 years experience is for lower level candidates, not someone over 20 years. And these are the things, the indirect job discrimination sort of things that are out there. It's a nice way of saying it's a junior position when they say that. They're not going to come out and say that in that many words, but there's no sense applying for a job like that. Companies do that sometimes because it's a budget that they don't want to pay for someone like that. You just never know. I just think in general, and this is what one of the discussions we had is, should salaries be listed on job descriptions, even if it's a range?
I'm in favor of it. I know a lot of companies don't want to do it. Salary is still one of those sacred cows. I'm going to stop right there because I'll get myself in trouble.
Well, I look at it both ways. I mean, look, different companies have different ranges and things, and it's being transparent. But at the same time, I want to know, if I don't have that, you're asked the question when you apply for a job, what is the range, your expected salary range? So what is the problem going in reverse? Because you're going to be counted out anyway if you put the wrong number there.
Yeah, no, I encourage my my clients to ask the company the question that goes with their question. Can you tell me the range you're thinking
Exactly.
of for this position?
Instead of you turn it around to them. What salary are you looking for? Well, what is your budget for the position? What is your salary range? And you take it that way. It's a little bit like dating in some ways, but you got to play the game.
Yes, it is not unlike dating.
And again, I always talk about people. Interviews are conversations. They're not inquisitions.
Right.
The person on the other end, and I've interviewed myself, other people, they're scared to death sometimes. Yeah, they're not prepared. They get the resume right away.
And then they may not have been trained on how to interview, and may not have a process that they're following. And I know Alex Freund deals with this issue a lot in some of his talks. You, as a job seeker going in for an interview, you do have the ability to influence the course of that interview. If you sense that this interviewer is scared, ill-prepared, untrained, and floundering, maybe the words "take charge" are too strong, but you certainly can influence the course of that interview, and you should, because you're there to help them understand who you are and the value that you bring or could bring to that organization.
And sometimes it's just taking a pause. Sometimes it's just thinking for a moment about how you're going to respond, or maybe ask them to repeat the question. It's not a rapid fire thing. I've interviewed for many places, and I'll think for a moment. And sometimes I don't know the answer. Sometimes I don't understand what they're asking me. And I've said that very nicely, of course. I'm not going to say what you're talking about, but sometimes they don't realize they're not even communicating properly what they want to ask of you.
That's right. That's right. So you're right. Asking clarifying questions, maybe feeding back to them what you think they're asking, and then asking, is that what you're asking?
So talk about creating a presentation to highlight qualifications.
Yeah, very important. Be ready. Be ready going into an interview to help them understand why you're the person they should hire.
Now, would you feel, how would you feel about someone coming into an interview taking notes while in the interview, or coming in with other things instead of just being a conversation? Would you feel intimidated, or would you think that would be a good idea for a job seeker to do?
I recommend it. I mean, unless you've got a fantastic memory and can remember everything you said and they said, fine. You don't need to take notes. I need to take notes. If I'm going in for an interview, I need to take notes because I'll walk out, I'll get in my car, and I will have forgotten half of what just happened. That's just the way my brain doesn't work.
I would also, and we talk about this a lot in our groups, think about the people interviewing you. They're probably of a different generation. They have a different mindset.
Yeah.
It's not right or wrong. It is the way it is. And
Yeah.
you want to recognize that. I think one of the challenges, and when I do this away in passing, when I mentor the young people just getting in, they have the same discrimination against them as the older people do, but the opposite.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it does go both ways. I think understanding what you're up against and then challenging yourself to be better than that, however that comes across. And I mean, I urge people on this call and people as they attend events to be inquisitive.
Yeah. Yes.
To definitely ask questions. I mean, if I don't know the answer, I'll say it. And I think that's one of the things that we were taught in corporate way back when, kind of fake it. If you don't know the answer, just fake it, and instead of looking it up. And I learned the hard way on a couple of occasions, faking it doesn't work.
No, don't fake it.
No.
Say, hey, I don't know, but I will get back to you. And then get back to them.
Right.
Follow up is key. I think a part of this process that some folks miss is the importance of follow up. Following up after an interview, so important. Are you sending a follow up email or a follow up note to the people that you interviewed with? Are you and what are you putting into that note? And if later that day or later that week you get an email saying that you've been passed over or turned down or rejected, are you following up that with a note? Are you following up after rejection? There's all kinds of opportunities for follow-up. I mean, follow-up could be a webinar, folks. I'm talking to my fellow webinar leaders out there. Let's do one on follow-up.
The other thing which I say very diplomatically to my job search group is, look, if you don't know the answer, look it up. Don't necessarily ask me, not that I don't want to share it, but part of job search is doing your own research on things.
Absolutely. Research. I think the most effective job seekers and career changers become researchers. They do their research interpersonally, like this, picking the brains of another person, informational interviews, we call it. They go to the library. Who was talking about libraries the other day? Was it Alex or somebody?
Probably.
Somebody was talking about going to the library. Yes, they've reopened and they're there to help you. Or go online and do your research using Google, LinkedIn, D&B, Hoovers. I mean, there's so many great research tools out there. Become a researcher.
And anyone who's out there who has the skills, there is nothing to stop you from creating your own event and doing a presentation and inviting people. We all got started somewhere.
Yes.
We're not these movie stars or people that are going to get these on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. We may be having a networking Walk of Fame or something, but it's.
I will nominate you, Ken, for that Walk of Fame. You are my idol. You're my inspiration. You really are.
But in all seriousness, the technology is there now that anyone can do this. Anyone can do this, and if you fail, which we all have, try again. I was on a call last week where it was Zoom bombed, and it was
me too. I did one.
And
Zoom bombed.
And we get it. It's how you handle things like that. I mean,
exactly. Yep.
Because it's just about everything else. I mean, what I love about conversations like this is we're just chatting. I don't like going to events all the time with an agenda. Mm-hmm. I used to hate going to events with the around the room elevator pitch for 15 or 20 or 30 seconds. And then I'd forget halfway through who they were. It's I understand why you're doing it, but really at this point, there's better uses of time, in my opinion.
Yeah.
So a question came up: is there a tool you recommend for organizing your search? Now it could be. I mean, I do a lot of my stuff on a spreadsheet, and keep it organized that way? Is there anything specific tool that you would recommend?
Yes, there are tools for organizing your search. There's no particular one I would recommend, or even one that's coming to mind. What works for me is my calendar. If you were to look at my calendar, it would look like a blizzard of names and things. Like today, for example, Kenneth Lang, and then other things coming up after that, or any before that. So calendar works for me. I use Google Calendar, and it's terrific. It fits the bill for me.
What I would recommend is if you have all your things on a calendar, go back to what you did a month ago and use that as the follow-up point. I did
Yeah,
these meetings a month ago or
great.
whatever. And then because instead of thinking about the future, go back to the past for something like that.
Who did I talk to last month, and what follow-up should I do this month?
Exactly.
Yeah, excellent.
Exactly.
Excellent. Excellent. Yeah, very good.
So does anyone have any ideas for what they would recommend for organizing a search? Alex, Hannah, I mean, might as well crowdsource this a little bit.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, here we go. Hannah, Jibber Jobber, Teal, and Hunter
Yeah,
are all
I've,
good tools.
I've heard of those.
I think, and this is a perfect example. I don't know the answer to this question. I know what I do, so I'm asking others. And I think that's all about what networking or conversations are about. I have to stop using that.
Exactly. What we're doing right now, folks, is what job hunters and career changers should be doing. Do this.
Yeah. And be willing to try different things.
Right.
Be willing to try whatever works and what doesn't work. And I've always gotten more success out of failures than anything else. I've learned more that way. And I think when you recognize that you can make a failure turn into a positive, I think it's a very good thing. Now, Scott, people don't answer the phone when you call, though. Well, if they don't answer the phone, different options. But I think it all depends. I mean, we could have a whole discussion about texting.
Yeah,
You should text people. And in this day and age, my feeling is if you put the cell phone on your contact, you're opening yourself up to be texted. Whether you want to text them right away or not, I don't know. But you want to take advantage of all communication opportunities.
Yeah. Keep trying.
Yeah. So is there anything else that you wanted to chat about before we end the call? Because I always like to be respectful of everyone's time. If you have a 2:00 meeting or something, I'd rather give people a few minutes to kind of decompress and get ready for the next thing that they're doing. Anything else you want to end with?
Well, if you're asking me, Ken, this has been great. I want to thank you for this today, but also thank you for what you're doing here with your regularly scheduled LinkedIn Live events, because you are an example to all of us of what we really ought to be doing ourselves to connect with others, to build relationships with others, to have conversations about things that matter the most. And it's those conversations, I believe very strongly, that are the stepping stones in one's search or in one's career.
So any of your career coaches come up with a common thread when you talk to them, things that you think people should be doing?
Networking more.
Okay.
Networking more, much more than people do. But I think, as I said earlier, that word networking sort of freaks people out a little bit. It's scary. And so I'm starting to now talk about talking to others, having conversations. Why don't you have coffee with somebody? Have a coffee chat and stay away from the N word, networking, and focus more on these other words, which really are what we're recommending. Talk to people. As you said before, pick up the phone. Pick up the phone.
So thanks, everyone, for attending. I appreciate your time very, very much. Have a great day, everyone. If you missed this recording, it'll be available on my LinkedIn, and I'll post a link on YouTube later on. Terry, thank you very much, and have a great day.
Adios.
Adios.